Hello, 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 and good evening, champions and friends of GHC. We are so honored and excited that you are joining us this evening. I hope you all are doing well. I hope that the Lord has been blessing you richly. And of course, I hope you all stayed cool because it has been hot. And so, thank you again for joining us for Wednesday Night Live, a special Wednesday Night Live for the month of July and August, which is going to be an introduction of our Greater Wealth Ministry. Before we jump right in, I just want to remind everyone that you can always go back and view our any of our Wednesday night lives or any of our services on Facebook or YouTube. We would love, love, love to have you for you to subscribe. So again, subscribe, like, share, comment, so that we can engage with you on a regular basis. And so I am not going to hold off too long. I am so excited, you all, because the first Wednesday night live we talked about tithing and giving and generosity and what biblical principles are of savings and being good stewards of our money. So, you all, we are in for an absolute treat because today we have one of the greatest investment gurus in the world in Hilary Spencer Persley from Edward Jones. Hilary, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good.
Yes, yes, we are so excited to have you, and we are so excited. Now, you're in Louisville. How's everything in Louisville? I'm sure it's hot like it is here as well.
It is. It certainly is. But we're getting through the summer. It's going fast, unfortunately. But
Absolutely, absolutely. So Hillary, how's everything going with Edward Jones? How's everything going with your office in Louisville? Just a brief overview of how's the landscape of investments.
sure, sure. So the investment world is sometimes a little bit uncertain, and that's been our word of the year is
Mhm.
uncertainty. But we do see, opportunity. I'm probably one of the more optimistic investors out there, financial advisors that, share with clients that we're going to make money at some point. So even if we have a down market, even if there's things that are happening that don't seem to be good for the economy, maybe it's tariffs, maybe it's interest rates, maybe it's housing. There's so many things that affect it, but over time, the market does well. And that's what we're seeing in the markets now. Of course, Louisville is probably a lot like Evansville, but maybe a little bigger. So we see a lot of opportunity even in investing in real estate, things like that. Stock market is not the only investment to make, but
Absolutely.
it's one that helps build wealth without you having to work for it.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, Hillary, I'm really excited because I know you're going to get us straight. You're going to help us and guide us to understand because what I've seen most in my congregation, just in family and in conversations that I have with individuals, it's there's a fear of investing because there's not an understanding of what it really is. There is it's pretty much very basic. Like I don't want to give my money and then lose it, right? So there's always kind of that. It's all I call it like a fogginess of what true investment looks like, how complicated it can get, how simple it can be. So I just want to start off really quickly with first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved with investing, and where you are with it now.
So about 28 years ago,
Wow.
then I worked at the bank. I didn't really know what I wanted to do in college. I was there for a couple of years and came home and started working at the bank, and that's where I even learned about what a financial advisor was. Because
Mm,
in my family, we didn't have financial advisors growing up. My parents didn't invest in stocks or bonds or mutual funds or anything. They invested in CDs at the bank, and I would think many people have used CDs at the bank to put money away and earn a little interest, but that was financial advising was unfamiliar to me. But once I did see a financial advisor and I understood what their role was and how you would work to become a financial advisor, then I did. I went back, got my degrees and things like that. So that was 28 years ago.
wow.
So
Wow.
it's been a long time, but
Hillary, you look 28. I don't believe it.
thank you. But and it has been a long, it has gone by fast, I will say. But I will say I took several steps to get to my own practice, my own financial advising practice. I worked as an assistant for advisors. I worked in like the accounting back office type part of it. But over the years, I've been a financial advisor now. Um, 18 years,
Okay.
19 years. So I've learned to go through some markets. I do have a daughter who's 10, so that was an adjustment, in the middle of pretty much a pullback in the market, 2008,
Mhm.
2009. We may talk a little bit more about that, but and then I'm starting a business here at Edward Jones in 2010,
Mhm.
and then I have a baby about a few years later, and so it was tough, but to build the business, raise a kid, and even now, but it's been a joy, and so.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so my everything's going pretty good.
Yeah. So the people watching can know that Hillary knows what she's talking about. She's not just some fly by night. She is. I really mean she's the guru. I've known Hillary for a number of years, and I have no problem with saying that Hillary is so amazing that our church invests and we work with Hillary. So we are in good hands. But so Hillary, I am a person who has never invested before, not a dime. I really don't know what it is. I really don't know how to do it. What is the simplest way for a beginner to start their investment journey?
So the simplest way is to use your employer plan at work.
Okay.
It
Okay.
is the best way to really start to build a retirement account. Now, your employer plan at work is generally going to be an account where you put money away and they possibly will match. Most employer plans match. So, right off the bat, if there's a match and you're putting in like 3% of your income, once you get used to that, you're never going to even think about that 3%
Mhm.
again. Well, more than likely, your employer is going to put that same 3% in as well. So you just double your money instantly. Now, what do you invest in inside the 401k? There are usually either people that will help with that, or they will just put you in a mutual fund. A fund is a big group of companies and different mutual funds that will say, okay, you're going to retire in 30 years. These are the investments you need, and you don't have to think about it. It's just to put the money in, let it grow. And that is how we have built wealth over the years. Those of us who maybe weren't as familiar with investing outside of a plan at work, but knew that once you get over the hurdle of not understanding that this is not going to just take your money and run, it's going to actually be somewhere you put your money away, you don't think about it, you leave it for several years, and it really grows. So I always tell everyone who's in a company that has a 401k or an employer plan, start there. And I can always help with that, with questions with that. And there's generally resources through that 401k plan that can also help. But that's the easiest way to get started.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I've had someone, Hillary, tell me that they have a company that offers 401k and they did not opt in. So you're saying, hey, you opt into that 401k, even if it's, 3%. Is 3% normally the standard or the lowest that you can go with what you put into a 401k?
Yeah, but it's well, no, you can put 1% in. I mean, if you felt like you couldn't part with 3% and you just start with 1%, but generally 3% is what your company will match. So if
Mhm.
you're up to 3%, they will match that. Now, some companies may match more. That if you put in, 5% of your salary, they may match 5%. But most companies, are pretty standard for 3%. So you can live without 3%. And just to give you a little bit of context, on a $30,000 salary, 3% is, let me get my calculator,
Okay,
folks.
yeah.
I usually have this number right in my head. That is, so it's $900 a year, which is about $75 a month.
Mhm.
And so while many of us may not have an extra $75 or may not think we have an extra $75, when you start looking at your spending patterns, you're going to find $75.
Yes.
But the benefit to a 401k is they're taking it before it goes into your checking account or before you get
Mhm.
a check. So they're going to put it in there and it's not really going to feel like $75 because it's coming out before taxes. And we won't get too in the weeds there, but just know that maybe your check changes $60 for the entire month. So whether you're getting, you know, you're paying $30 twice a month or $60 once a month, that's what you're going to be investing, and they're matching that generally. So
Awesome. Wonderful. Wonderful. So check those 401ks or 403bs if you're in nonprofit education, whatever the
Correct.
case may be. Okay, Hillary. So my next question is, there's a lot of people that have misconceptions on the difference between a savings and an investment plan. So could you kind of tell us the difference between the two and how or if we should be doing both at the same time? Let's say we're already doing our 401k or retirement, but we want to do something on the side. What is the difference and how would you recommend that be done?
Mhm. Okay, so generally a savings plan or savings account is going to be an account at the bank that you earn a little interest in. Unfortunately, the rates are very, very low in most savings accounts at the bank. But the savings account at the bank is the perfect place to put what's considered an emergency fund. So money that you've got set aside, there's no risk to it because in an investment account, we'll kind of talk about there are ups and downs. But in a savings account, the money's there. You can get it when you need it. There's no general time frame to get it, and that if you could have 3 months worth of your um, bills and spending needs that you have, or 6 months in the savings account. But the money that you don't need for a short term in the next year or so, money that you want to build and put away and not worry about whether it's for retirement or just for, 5 years you're going to buy a house, or 10 years you're going to send your kid to college, or there's just things you just want to put extra money away. You've got your savings account, you're maybe even adding $100 or so to that a month, but you've got extra money you want to also invest, then that's where an investment account would come in. And whether it's just a regular brokerage account, which works like a savings account, but you can invest in mutual funds, CDs, bonds, different types of investments that are going to grow faster than a savings account.
Wonderful.
Or we can put money away for retirement.
Wonderful. So if I'm following that plan, right? So just use me as an example. I'm following that plan and I don't make a lot, but I've got enough money where I can put a little bit away for investments, a little bit away for savings. You, Sometimes the struggle may be, well, I don't have enough to invest or I don't have enough to save because I feel like I've got like bills and things going on. So how do I invest wisely and not get into a situation where I'm still struggling? Or maybe the appropriate question would be, Hillary, how much should you invest? Like what's that amount look like?
So the amount is definitely based on if you make $1,000 for the month and you spend or have to spend 900 of that to pay your bills and feed your family and do those things, then you may only be able to save $20 a month. And that's okay. Now, whether or not you put it in a savings account or in an investment account, that would be, something we could talk about, or an investor or a financial advisor could talk with you about. But any amount that you can put away each month is only going to be beneficial to you. So if it's $10 a month, if it's $20 a month. Now, if you find yourself in a place where you do have debt, maybe more than just your mortgage, maybe you have a credit card that's, kind of big and you're like, I just want to pay this down before I invest. I will tell you, when I'm talking with clients, I'm not really a debt advisor, but I can help as manage and really try to look at how do we get this to the point where it's not taking all of your excess cash. Your debt is not. So once you get a plan with that, then you're going to have extra money. Now I'm going to quote Dave Ramsey because a lot of people talk and look and see and hear Dave Ramsey's comments, but his thing is get out of debt before you invest. That's
Mhm.
always been his thing. He's changing a little bit on that, but because time is really the benefit in investing. So if you start putting $50 away now, even as you try to pay down your debt, 10 years from now, that's going to be a lot of money. It's going to be money that's built up. If you wait 10 years when your debt is all paid off to start, you're going to have to work twice as hard and you're not going to still have the same amount. So time is of the essence. So if you can allocate a little to paying off debt in a way that's going to get you financially free, maybe a couple years earlier, maybe 5 years or half of the time. But while you're doing that, put a little bit, whether again it's in that 401k or it's something you're setting aside in an investment account or a savings account. Good thing about building up a good savings is once it's there and you're comfortable with it, maybe you're not dipping into your savings often, then you can pull some. Maybe you built up $2,000 in that. Well, you say, okay, I know this will cover me for 3 months if I need it. Maybe you put $500 over into an investment account. Keep building your savings, but you put that there and let it grow.
Yeah. So Hillary, if I reach out to you and I say, Miss Hillary, I want to start investing, and what I have is $20 or $25. Is that something where you're going to be like, oh, that's not enough. I can't do anything with that.
No, no, we may not be able to go into an investment at that point. There are some minimums, $100 minimum for a mutual fund.
Mhm.
But as we build that, we would do kind of the same thing as your savings account. If it's $20 a month, we would start building that. And then once we get to, $100 a month to buy a mutual fund, we'd invest that, and then we could add to it. So it's not, no, there's not too less an amount to invest.
Yeah.
I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah. Yeah. I got you.
There's always a place to put whatever investment. I mean, obviously, there's a change drawer or a change jar. You can throw your money in, take it to the bank, let them sort it out. You might have $100 there. So that saving is saving. So whether you save $20 a month, cost is not a big factor in investing, especially at those dollar amounts. But we can talk a little bit about that in a brokerage account where it's no IRA, and this is not really, just this would be something we talk about more if we ever work together or you work with a financial advisor, they would explain this more. But just a simple brokerage account doesn't cost you to put your money there and put it in a savings account at an investment firm until you're ready to invest it or until you have enough to do whatever minimums they have. So that's always a way to, brokerage account, not using a retirement account. Some of those have extra costs.
Mhm.
A lot of people like investing online. I would say if you could talk to somebody about investing before you even open your online account, that might be a good way to at least find out where you should go next instead of buying a bunch of Bitcoin.
Yeah.
No,
Right.
I'm just
Right. No. No. So Hillary, so you brought up a really good point about brokerage accounts, and that does not cost you. There are a lot of people that are very skeptical or very hesitant because they're like, well, how are you getting paid, and where's that money coming from? And there's a lot of people that don't really understand that you are investing that money working for you, and there is compensation for your advisor. Not into too much detail, but can you just kind of break that down a little bit on, when someone comes in your office and they're like, here's my $25. I want to invest, you know, it's not the minimum for a mutual fund, but I'm going to get it there. Okay, weeks from now, I'm at $150 in that brokerage account. What does that look like, and how, in in basic terms, do our financial advisors get paid?
okay. So we get paid on the investments. There are accounts at bigger dollar amounts where you put the money in and there's a cost on an annual basis that you would pay, generally around 1%, 1.25%. But for an investor that's just starting out and putting money in, then we get paid as we invest. So let's say we do build up $500 and put it into a mutual fund. Well, when that $500 goes into the mutual fund, then there is a percent we would get paid. It's generally approximately 5%. That's pretty much what it is. So you think about on $500, you'd pay your advisor $25. So your $475 is now invested in stocks or bonds or whatever investment you all have created, and that's how they get paid.
Wow.
Over time in the mutual fund, let's say it makes money and it makes 10% for the year. Well, a percent of that is going to go to the money managers, to the advisor, all total. So we get a very, very small part of it going forward. But where we really are compensated on an investment strategy like that, where we're putting a little away each month, it's on the initial investment and any investment after that.
Awesome.
So about 5%, but one time upfront, we can talk about that. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So everybody's clear and understands now, what they're getting into, and it's not some kind of cloak and dagger situation. So we want to demystify, right, the finances. We want to demystify investing. So this is great. So Hillary, what are some common mistakes that you see beginning investors make, and how can you avoid those mistakes?
Okay, so the first number one mistake that everybody makes is when their money goes down. We're going to use bigger numbers, so $1,000, because everybody, $1,000 is a nice amount of money. You put it
Yeah.
away, you saved it. You're like, I want this money to go to $2,000. Most people think we could double it in 2 months, 6 months, 2 years. I don't know. Generally, we can't. But their biggest mistake is if that $1,000 goes to $900 or 850, they sell then. They want to take it out. No, I don't want to lose any more money. I can't
Mm,
afford to lose any money. And they take it out. And that happens in 401k plans. It happens in investment accounts. People don't like to lose money, period. And I understand that. But in a market, a stock market, it goes up and down. So there are going to be times you're going to see, if we're just using that $1,000, your $1,000 might be worth $1,200 in a few months. But then it might go back to 1050 or $1,050. So it's going to fluctuate. And the number one mistake you can make with your 401k, with investments, anything you're investing in that has some risk of fluctuation, it's going to move up and down, is taking it out when it goes down or when the market's down. Because what's going to happen is you're going to get out at the bottom, and then the market's going to go back up. And your money, if you had left it in there, would have gone back up with the market. But once you take it out, then you've lost it. So
mm.
that's the number one mistake. And that's why using a financial advisor or even consulting with a financial advisor can help you maybe understand what could possibly happen. The market has never not recovered. So I'll say that again. The market, wherever the market hits a high and goes down, it has never not gone back to that high and moved higher. So the
Mm.
market always gets back to its high, no matter how far it goes down, and goes higher. At least that's how it's been for the last almost 100 years now.
Yeah.
So we expect that to be a continuation. The market will go down and it'll go back up to its high and it will go higher. So
Awesome.
don't sell when it's down.
Yeah. Okay. Y'all heard. Don't sell. You might get nervous, but don't
Yes.
sell. I will be very transparent. I have sold before and I regret it. So listen to me. Hear me as a person that has done it. Do not sell. Let that money work for you. So thank you for your transparency, Hillary. One of the things that I'm always approached with, one of the questions rather, or concerns with members of our churches and our community is, I want to make sure that I'm investing in something that does not go against my values as a Christian, as a believer in Jesus, as a person with a faith background, and even a person that may not be religious, but just really believes in the good of the world and not supporting certain companies and things of that nature. How does one align their investment aspirations with their Christian or ethical values?
Well, there are fund families, investment firms that really focus on social governance, being good for the environment, being good for the people. So I typically use a certain fund family that does adhere to those. They don't invest in companies that seem to do harm to folks, to people. They don't generally invest. They don't invest in this specific fund family. They don't invest in gun makers and alcoholic beverages and companies like that, cigarette companies. They've got.
Pornography, things like that. Yeah.
Correct. Yes, they've got very strict parameters. There is another fund family, and in our conversations before, there is a faith-based fund family
Mm,
that is a very small fund. And while it might be even more based on values, it may not have as much in return and things like that. So this fund that I use that's socially and environmentally focused on being good and doing no harm
mm,
is a fund family that has performed very well, because obviously we're putting money in to make money. And there are some, like I said, smaller places that may be even more tailored to that. So that could be something that you could find, you could work with. It's generally a private investment too, so that makes it a little bit less accessible for the average investor. But for, again, there's a fund family, we've talked about it before,
Yeah.
that really does adhere to that. And that's what I use more on that. Not that they don't invest. Everybody doesn't like Walmart, right? At this time, or at least over the last 6 months,
Yeah.
they may invest in Walmart, and they have strict reasons why they don't invest in this and that, but they also do this on a yearly basis. So maybe Walmart doesn't fit their criteria anymore when they review this. But it's not to say there's not going to be any company in there that hasn't done something wrong, but they do try to be really strict on their investment strategy.
Awesome. Wonderful. Wonderful. So if I come in and I am very serious about who I invest with, I can just reach it, just say, hey, Miss Hillary, these are the companies I don't want to invest with. Do you have a fund family that works
Mhm.
connected to my values and beliefs? You'll be able to help us find that.
Yes, yes. And one other thing I will say is we can invest in individual companies. So that's an investment we can make here as an advisor, and it's a little different strategy on the investment cost, how much you have to invest each month. But and it's not much more, but it's $100 a month. You could invest in a stock if you wanted to, a company that you spend your money with, that your family spends their money with, that probably takes a lot of your income, like
Yeah,
Apple, I don't
yeah,
know,
yeah.
um, or Kroger's or whoever it is, and you can invest in a stock. So we don't have to always invest in a fund of different companies. We can invest in certain companies.
Yeah.
Takes on a little bit more risk to do that, but
So basically, just so everyone understands, a fund family, Miss Hillary, is a group of funds that work together, and your money is distributed when you invest among those funds that are in the family. Correct?
right, yes.
Okay.
They're spread out over several different companies. So
Awesome.
there might be a fund that focuses on technology companies, but there might just be 100 companies in there, and you put $100 in there, and your 100 gets spread out over those 100 companies.
Wow.
So it's a very small part of a company you would own, but yes, it's a group of companies, and a money manager says, okay, we don't want Amazon in the portfolio anymore. We want to put Google in the portfolio, and they can make those changes.
Gotcha.
That's not a change most people are making at this moment, but
No, I
that's
understand. So,
possible.
Miss Hillary, when you say own, I think a
Mhm.
lot of people also don't understand the value of investments through ownership. Excuse me. So when I invest, and let's say I'm in a fund family that has Walmart and has Kroger and has the grocery stores, whatever the case may be, Sam's Club, Costco, whatever. If I've invested $1,000, do I own a part of that company? And how does that work?
So technically, yes, yes, a very, very, very tiny part,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's you then are own it with your mutual fund that you're invested in. So the difference between owning it inside that mutual fund and owning it on your own as a shareholder is that, so if you own stock, when you buy, you say I want to start putting $100 a month into Costco or a company. Well, now you're a shareholder direct with Costco. So you own a bigger percentage of Costco than you might own in that mutual fund. But
Mm,
you also have rights as a shareholder. So it gets, kind of technical. And so, but technically, when you are invested in a stock, a lot of people may invest, if you, big here is a big, we have a big group of Humana employees, we have Ford employees. And so a lot of those people, workers for those employees of those companies, bought some of their stock. So they own a little bit of their stock. So they can help make decisions. They might own 10 shares, so their decision making power is very small. But in the mutual fund, you're going to own a group of stocks, and the mutual fund manager is going to say, okay, well, we don't want this company in there anymore. So you have no say so on what's in that fund. You do own some stock in there, but you don't really have any control over what stocks are in that
yeah.
fund.
So you can't come and say, Hillary, we're in this stock family, and I don't want Target in there, so you need to take them out. We can't do
No,
that.
no, no. Only when you're doing individual stocks, you
Gotcha.
can pick and choose the companies that you want. Now, we can pick a mutual fund family that has the companies that we're really interested in buying, and those are the bigger companies. If there's companies like if we want to own a little bit of Tesla and uh, Amazon and Google and Apple and
Mm,
Nvidia, all these different tech companies, there's a mutual fund for that. Now, it's going to give us a lot of other companies too, but we really want to see the returns of those companies, and we may not have enough to buy each of those stocks.
gotcha. Gotcha. Wonderful. Uh, Really quickly, Miss Hillary, can you just kind of give us a rundown of the different types of investments? Because we've heard about brokerage accounts, we've heard mutual funds, we've heard stocks, we've heard CDs. Can you just kind of give us a quick breakdown of all of those?
So, okay, we'll start with the savings account. You put your money in, it's in the bank, it's in a bank type account, it's insured, you're going to earn a little interest. The next level up for investing would be a CD, where you're going to put money away for some period of time, a year, 2 years, 5 years, and you're going to get a little bit higher interest rate because you put your money away and it's generally at the bank. Next would be your investment or brokerage account, which is an account that you can take money out of and put money into at any point in your life, where you can, there's no restrictions like in an IRA account, which we'll get there. But in the investment account, you can invest in stocks, which are companies that you own. You can invest in mutual funds, which is a group of companies that you own. You can invest in bonds, which is a lot like a CD. Um, but that in a brokerage account, you can do that. So that money in the brokerage account is just like a savings account. You're just able to invest in other things than just that savings. And then you've got your retirement accounts, your traditional IRA, your 401k plan, your Roth IRA, and those you can invest in stocks, mutual funds, bonds, some of the same investments.
Yeah.
I know that maybe is a quick way to kind of separate them, but on a risk scale, I will say your savings account, no risk. CD, no risk except time. Bonds, right in the middle. Mutual funds and stocks are on the
On the
side
high.
of risk.
Yeah.
Yes, and we talk about risk because risk says you put $1,000 in and it could go down 10% in the next 3 months. So
Yeah.
your 1,000 could go to 900. That's your risk, and we would talk about that and how comfortable you are with that.
Gotcha. So can you explain the risk versus reward concept, just like in very simple terms for us? What is that risk versus reward?
So you're taking a risk by putting money away that you may need sooner than you think, and you may be investing it at a time where you put it in now and the market goes down.
Right.
So risk is that you put it in on January 1st, and May 15th, you need some money to pay your tax bill or to do anything, and that money is lower than what you put in. So that's the risk. Now, if you don't need it by May 15th or anytime in the next 2 to 3 to 4 years, you're probably going to have more than you started with. So the risk versus reward is that if we take a little bit of risk, meaning we put the money away, we don't need it, we don't plan to use it in the next 2 to 3 years, and we let it sit there and grow, the reward will be that we possibly will see, our $1,000 turn to $1,500, our $1,000 turn to $1,200. Um, I do try to make sure everybody understands percentages and how that works. We won't go into detail here, but most people aren't going to double their money in 3 to 5 years. They're going to double their money in 7 to 10 years.
Hmm.
But leaving it there is going to reward is I'm going to leave this 10,000 or 5,000 or 1,000 invested for the next 5 to 10 years, and it's going to give me a return of double what I put in.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for that. So I'm glad you mentioned about return because, again, this is from personal experience. It is so easy for you to get in the mindset. I'm going to have it in for a little bit, and I'm going to put 1,000 in. And when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to have $15,000 in that account. I'm going to pull it out. Right? Like I remember thinking that's a little drastic, but I remember thinking, oh yeah, this is going to happen quick. What kind of return should we realistically expect over time, Hillary?
Yes, if you're investing in stocks and stock mutual funds, you're going to get somewhere between 8 and 12%. So we just call it 10%. So $1,000 grows by at least $100 every year, 10%. And in 7 years, your $1,000 is now $2,000. But the difference between 10% investment that you're getting, you may not get it year over year over year, but on average, you're getting 10% versus your savings account at the bank that's getting you 1%, and that's being very generous. But 1% on your savings account at the bank means your $1,000 is getting $10 a
Mm,
year, a whole year. So you put it in the stock market, your $1,000 makes $100. You put it in your savings account, your $1,000 might make $10 for the year, and that's fine. You didn't have any risk in that savings account. You'll take the $10 because you don't want to see that $1,000 go to 900. Over
mhm.
here in the stocks, to get that 10%, that $100 on that 1,000, you have to take risk. But if you want to double money, you want to build wealth, you want your money to grow, at 1%, it's going to take you 72 years for that 1,000 to turn to 2,000.
Wow.
At 10%, it's going to take you 7 years for that 1,000 to become 2,000. And then just think about if you've got 5,000 there, or you're building it to 10,000, and it's doubling over time. You're saving for retirement. That's how you see that portfolio, that 401k plan, that account that you started at 35 or 25 and let sit and grow, how you see it really amass wealth.
Awesome. That's wonderful. So how often, let's say we're working with Hillary, we've got some money in investments. How often should we review or update our investment plan with you?
Yes, at least once a year. So that, and when things change, but generally, whatever investments we outline and the time frame we use is set for some longer period of time, but we want to at least review it every year, once a year.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to ask this question. And again, like I said, I always use myself as a guinea pig. So I don't want anybody to feel embarrassed or like, oh, Miss Hillary, I don't have any money or I've done investments before and I made some mistakes. So let me tell you one of my mistakes. You know how I said earlier on before Miss Hillary answered her previous question, how I thought it was going to grow really fast and I was going to take the money out. You know what I didn't factor in? Taxes. I did not factor in taxes. Woo! So, Miss Hillary, can you explain to us how do taxes impact your investments, whether you put it in or take it out, and how can you minimize that impact?
Mhm. Okay, so the biggest impact taxes have on your investments when you take it out is in your 401k or an IRA account, money that you put in that had never been taxed. And so when you take it out, now you have to pay taxes on it. So you might have put in, $5,000 a year, and now it's worth $30,000, and you take it all out. Well, you're going to pay taxes on $30,000 like you just made that money. Plus, you're going to pay 10% more than you owe in taxes on that because if you're under 59 and a half. So there are some age limits you have to get to actually get your money out of your retirement accounts with no penalty, no tax penalty. And that tax penalty is generally 10%. But you're going to still owe taxes. So that's why if you can avoid taking money out of a IRA or a 401k before you turn 59 and a half, you'll save yourself some money. It's always going to be taxed. We can talk about Roth IRAs. Maybe we do another session on Roth IRAs, but
Yeah.
that money is growing tax free for you. And that's a benefit. It's a huge benefit. And now Roth IRAs are available in 401k plans. So that is where you want to focus your money. But as far as this normal pre-tax traditional IRA, 401k, you put your money in, it's never been taxed. So when you take it out, they want their taxes on it,
Yeah.
and they want a little more if you're under 59 and a half.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest tax
Yeah.
issue. The brokerage account is like a savings or CD. You're going to get some dividends or interest, and you're going to pay taxes on it over the year. So when you can take that money out, there's no penalty in taxes. There might be some capital gains, but you want capital gains. So there's no penalty in a brokerage account, but that IRA, 401k, um, that's where you see the taxes.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. So I guess, what do you say, Miss Hillary, to a member that's watching this and it's like, oh my gosh, this is opening my eyes, this is amazing, and I want to invest, but I don't know how to invest with, and we talked about amount, but how to invest while still tithing, while still being generous, while still, giving back. Like, just as an advisor, I know I'm not asking you to answer like a pastor, but just as an advisor, what are some tangible and practical pieces of evidence and advice that you can give when someone comes and says, I want to invest, Miss Hillary, but I got to have enough money for tithes. I got to have enough money for this as well.
Yeah. So I will say, and then quoting my pastor, and Reverend Cosby, he's
Yes.
always said the 80-10-10 rule. So, give your 10% and then save 10%. Give yourself 10%, give God 10%, and then live on 80% and try to live on less. But if you could follow that, now whether you're putting the 10% in a 401k or you're putting 5% of your money in a savings account and 5% in the 401k, but you're still bringing your 10% to your tithe, and then you're able to live on that 80%. Because honestly, you guys, if you can't live on 80% of your income, you're probably using a lot of debt to cover
Mhm.
your expenses. So, we're not going to get into the gross versus net part, but even if you just looked at net, give your 10% to God, because that is going to be the biggest investment return you can have. I mean, that's just my own personal testimony. So I'm not saying that, you put it into your tithe and it's going to double for you, but it's certainly going to bring back blessings. On
Yeah.
the other side, putting that 10% away faithfully for yourself is also going to be a benefit. Whether you're building it in a savings account that's not there for a return, it's just there to have, or you're putting it in an investment account that's really going to build wealth for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, thank you for that. And we love Dr. Cosby of St. Stephen's Church in Louisville, Kentucky. So, yes, thank you so much. Two more questions, Hillary. What investment options? Because I'm very passionate about education. I'm very passionate about higher education. I know higher education has become expensive over the last 25 years, but I'm also passionate about, our community college education system as well as trades and going into the military. So, what investment options exist for planning your child's college education, your college education, if you want to go back to college, or to build generational wealth? What are some of those options out there?
Okay. So on the college education, there are what are called 529 plans that you can open. Their savings, education savings plans is what they are. And you can open those for your child, put the money away over time. It's going to grow and you're not going to pay taxes when you use that money for their college.
Mm,
Now, let's say you build up $10,000 in that, but then they get a full ride for scholarship. Well, they can use that money, that 10,000, without taxes. There's no tax penalty. They went to college, they had expenses. It was paid for, but they can take that money out. And then now, in a rule that's just recently come out, if you save money for your child for 18 years or 15 years, you've built up some money, they get a full ride, or they go to the military and they don't need this money to use for school, or they take on a trade and they don't need, they're taking on an electrician role, and generally the electrician company that they're apprenticing with is paying their education. They still have this money here. At 25, they can flip that money over into a Roth IRA.
wow.
So that then starts the generational wealth for them. You may have put away $100 every 3 months for them
Yeah.
to build this 529 plan. And they were scholars and they did everything right, or they went to the military or what have you. Now they've got 10,000, 20,000 set aside to start their retirement plan.
Mm,
So that's money that's already been growing. It's going to continue to grow, and it really does help. If you put money in at 18, 20, 22, and let it grow for 40 years, 30 years, it's going to be worth a lot more
that's
later.
awesome. That's awesome. And so that kind of leads me to my final question, which is, how can investing help secure that future? I know I don't think anyone walks through life saying, "I'm okay with being in debt. I love being in debt. I want to stay in debt." Like, I don't think anyone has that perspective. I think the goal, at least for me, and I'm sure for others, is to be 100% debt free, to have those investments. So, what do those steps look like? How can we invest to help secure that future while maintaining a realism, right? Like it's not going to happen overnight, things like that. So, what would be your advice to start that path of being debt free?
Okay. So I'm gonna give me like a few minutes to get
Yeah,
there, but
please.
I wanted to share with you guys what is called a latte factor. The latte factor came around when Starbucks got here, first came on the scene, and people were spending $5 a day for coffee they could get for 35 cents, right? Buying it at home, but they would pay this. And so there became a focus for investors and lots of economics and research on this, but it showed that we spend so much money on maybe things that are more than we need to. So do you need a $5 latte every day, 7 days a week for every year? No. And if you in the calculation of that is about $2,000 a year. So
Mm,
there's your latte factor. You have to figure out what your latte factor is. I hate to say this, folks who smoke cigarettes, that was a big latte factor in this research. And the cost to have, that amount, whatever amount you need, is huge over time. If you could take half of your latte factor, whatever that is, a week. Mine, I will be honest, is eating out. I just eat out too much. I eat out for lunch. Most times we eat out for dinner just
mhm,
because time and convenience. But if I could eat out half the time less and save that money over these 20 or 30 years, not only am I not incurring more debt, I have more capital or money to pay off existing debt. So that's one thing. And I'm not saying that buying a $5 cup of coffee every day is going to keep you in debt forever, but you got to focus on your spending habits. We don't call it a budget. We're not saying cut your this, cut your that, but you really have to focus on your spending habits if you want to be debt free, if you want to be
mhm,
more wealthy. Can we get wealthy over the next 30 years? Possibly. But even to get comfortable and to be, where you're talking about financially free, basically, ready to retire and be able to retire when you want to. I will also say that your 50s, buying a house is very important. And if, people in our community, somebody owned a house and your grandmother owned the house and the uncle stayed there and the aunt came and went, and there was always a place for somebody to go if they needed a roof. And when that person passed, generally there was a little bit of money from that house to pay out to everybody. So that was our wealth builder over years. Well, imagine if you can have the house that maybe you don't let your brother stay there or your sister or whoever, but you have it to pass on to your kids. It's
mhm.
paid off by the time you pass away at 70 or 80 or 90. And that is a big asset for them. It could be worth $100,000, it could be worth $200,000. But the house is important. And the earlier you start paying off that house and paying down debt, if you could get to your 50s with little to no debt, or really getting a handle on it in your 40s, but in your 50s I have seen where that's the 10 years your kids are usually grown, college is either paid for or they've got loans like me. My family couldn't pay for college, so but in your 50s your house might be really close to being paid for, and you're probably making the most money you're probably going to make in your working years, the last decade or so. So that's the time to really focus on the savings. You will be amazed how much excess cash you have. And if you don't bring in a new latte factor, maybe
Mhm.
it's traveling now because now you have extra $1,000 a month to spend because your kids are gone and your house is almost paid off. And so you generally take it and blow it. If you could figure out in your 50s how much excess you have that you don't need and put it away at 60, 65, 70, you're going to be very comfortable. You're certainly going to be out of debt. And then you will have started building something for the next generation.
Wow. Wow. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Sorry, I know that was a long answer to
No,
the
that was
question.
great. I really appreciate it, Hillary. This is wonderful, and I thank you so very much for joining us this evening. This has blessed me, and I hope it has blessed everyone as well. So, really quickly, for those of you all, again, Hillary is a very knowledgeable, trusted financial advisor with Edward Jones. For those that would are interested in having a conversation with Hillary and to talk with Hillary, I'm going to share her contact information on our screen right now. Her email is going to be hillary.spencerpersley at edwardjones.com. Okay, so I'm going to keep that on the screen, you all, for those that want to just reach out to Hillary, ask any questions, see if we can engage. And I hope that maybe you have that 25, that 50, that $100, whether it's in change under your seat. I know sometimes my kids drop all kinds of quarters and stuff in my car, right? I got a whole bank in my car. But whatever it is, however small you want to start off, that you will just take that first step to contact Hillary. If you would like to give her a call, her number is going to be 502 448 6191. Again, that's 502 448 6191. Excuse me. And while Hillary's office is in Louisville, I'm sure she'll be able to accommodate us here in Evansville. So, Hillary, again, I really, really, truly appreciate it. Do you have any final thoughts, any closing remarks that you would like for us to know?
Just don't be afraid to go and figure this out, to think about it, to work on it, to do it. Call me. Really, this is how I built my business, talking to folks like you guys, even though it would generally be in a room with a bunch of people and trying to help them understand how to invest, because education is the key. So figure it out, do it, don't wait, just start doing it, or call me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Hillary, it is always an honor. I truly appreciate you. I thank you so much. I know that our congregation appreciates you as well, and all of those that will watch this stream. So thank you, thank you, thank you for your wisdom and your expertise. And thank you all so much for joining us for Wednesday Night Live, our special Wednesday Night Live, as we dive deeply into our greater wealth ministry. God bless each and every one of you. And let's take the first step to becoming financially free, debt free, and let's find that 10, that 15, that 20, that $25, that 50, that 100, whatever it is, and let's start investing to build generational wealth. Thank you all so much. I love you dearly, and have a wonderful evening. Thank you. Thank you, Hillary.
Thank you guys. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for having me on too. Thanks.